responsible.
Well, what about the president also saying he could just change the Constitution?
Well, that's who they're echoing.
With an executive order.
Here's what the president told Axios, Jim Vandehei, last night. Take a look.
On immigration, some legal scholars believe you can get rid of birthright citizenship without changing the Constitution.
With an executive order.
Exactly.
Right.
Have you thought about that?
Yes.
Tell me more.
It was always told to me that you needed a constitutional amendment.
Right.
Guess
14th
what?
Amendment.
You don't.
You don't.
Number one, you don't need that. Number two,
I mean, that's in dispute.
You could definitely
That's very much in dispute.
Well, you can definitely do it with an act of Congress, but now they're saying I can do it just with an executive order. Now, how ridiculous. We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it has to end.
Have you talked about that with counsel?
Yeah, I have.
So where in the process?
It's in the process. It'll happen. With an executive order. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes,
That's
exactly
very
what I was
interesting.
talking about.
I didn't think anybody knew that but me. I thought I was the only one. Jonathan,
I've got a good
impressed.
Oh, my God.
Mr. President, I know that sometimes your memory's a little. You talked about this before. I think you talked about this in 2017. I'm not sure the exact year, but you were laughed actually off the national stage. Mika, you can't change the Constitution with an executive order. The president says it's ridiculous. This is ridiculous. The Constitution is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, it's been around for a couple hundred years, and it's done all right.
So, Jim Vandehei, as we watch this flailing last gasp race to the finish line with racism sirens ringing loudly, did you see when you and Jonathan Swan were talking to the president, it almost seemed like, and I'd wonder if you'd concur because you were in the room, that he was making stuff up as he was going along. I don't think he understood what he was talking about, because if he did, he'd understand that you can't do that.
I actually think it's the opposite. I think he's been thinking about this for several weeks. He's been talking to lawyers internally and externally. I think even the stuff that he sees on Fox News, I think he believes this. I think there's parts of it that are no doubt propaganda. I think there's parts of it that he actually thinks this is happening, that you need 5,200 troops, and that he thinks he does have the power to use an executive order to get rid of birthright citizenship. He feels very proud of this, seemed very certain of it. The interview was fascinating. It'll be on Sunday, but it turned into a very, very tense argument about a lot of things that he's saying and doing, and the guy just believes it. Like, yes, part of it is for show, but part of it, you can see it in his eyes. This is his heart. He does not feel like he has an obligation to bring anything down, any temperature down, the boil down. He feels very passionately about these things that he's doing, and it looks like he'll try to proceed with this. Most lawyers that we talk to don't think you could do this. There is the 14th Amendment that says if you're born on U.S. soil, you are a citizen of the United States. They'll point to that pre-1960 that wasn't applied, that since the 60s that's been growing and all the way through the financial crisis, and then started to dip a little bit. But again, like on immigration, this is one of the topics he has been fairly consistent on, and he's certainly getting, I think, a harder edge on it as you get near the election. And I think a lot of the Fox viewers, they believe it. They really think that there's this threat. I think Shep Smith put it beautifully. Like, they're months away. By the time they get here, it might be 20 people. We're going to have 5,200 people backing, 2,000 people backing the border security that's already there, by the way. We already have like a pretty secure southern border. For all this nonsense of like, wow, we got to build more and this is a pretty fortified border. Sure, there's people that occasionally get through, but now you're going to have 3 lines of defense for a couple of men, a couple of women, and a couple of kids, and a couple of pickup trucks.
So Richard
Willie, I'm sorry, Willie, but again, Willie, before you go to Richard, what have we been saying for 2 years? This entire thing is a farce. You have more people going back to Mexico than coming into the United States. There has been a net immigration flow for a couple of years now.
Yeah, for several years. It ticked up last year under President Trump, ironically, so now he can say, well, it's gone up last year. Well, it was under his administration. And Richard, if you listen to what the president said about getting rid of birthright citizenship, this isn't a new idea. This has been around for a long time among conservative activists and, in fact, in Congress. Steve King, the Republican from Iowa, has introduced legislation several times to get rid of birthright citizenship, found some co-sponsors, a number of them. But put all this together, what the president's doing right now, the stories we've been talking about, with the idea, floating the idea of getting rid of birthright citizenship and sending the 5,200 troops to the border.
It's all of a piece, and there's nothing accidental about this. There's nothing random. It all fits, and it actually circles back to where Joe began the show this morning. For your entire lifetime, for mine, for everyone on the set this morning, the principal debate in Europe and the United States was about the role of government in the economy, how much market versus how much state. What we're now seeing is a rotation politically. That is no longer the principal debate. The principal debate in Europe and the United States, the real fault line that gets people going, is this issue of openness. How open are we to people? How open are we to trade? And it's this issue of national identity versus internationalism, globalism, if you will. So what Donald Trump is doing is he is mining that fault line. He is working it, whether it's birthright citizenship, whether it's sending troops to a border that's not under siege. But it worked. It swung the vote in Brexit. That's what happened. It swung the vote across Europe, and it has a powerful galvanizing effect here. This is where we are now. This is a fundamental political change, a real transformation in the democratic world. And we're no longer arguing serious issues about how to regulate our economies. We're no longer arguing serious issues, say, about how to fight the Cold War. We are arguing questions about national identity. And it's not that far to get from that to issues of racism and everything else we're seeing now in Western societies.
And Joe, again, the president sets up immigration as a binary choice a week away from the midterm election. Do you either want 5,200 people at the border and get rid of birthright citizenship, or you want smallpox and rapists and MS-13 gang members flooding into the country?
This is just awful.
And again, we've been saying it nonstop. If people don't have a Google machine in their house, they can go next door and they can check everything he says here. Everything's a lie. MS-13, use the president's own government statistics. You will find out that fewer than like 0.013% of the people that came in last time were MS-13. Like the immigrants, it's just the numbers are so small. And again, the caravan in April that he said was going to bring, and Fox News and everybody said was going to be, talk radio said it was going to be into the world, 12, 13, 14 people arrested by the end. It is just ridiculous. But you know what we ought to do is let's follow up in a minute on what Richard Haass just said. We are going to talk about this nationalism that seems to be crossing not only America but the world. Angela Merkel saying she's not going to run for re-election. Also, of course, David Duke and a lot of white supremacists, a lot of white nationalists praising Donald Trump for his language. It's not code language anymore. He's just going right there. And David Duke and other Klansmen and racists and alt-righters are, well, they're responding. And we're going to talk to Jeffrey Goldberg about this remarkable last week about Pittsburgh. Going to be talking to Katty Kay about what's happening not only here, but across Europe when we return on Morning Joe. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.